Well, we're going to go ahead and begin. Thank you so very much for joining the Complete College America webinar with Technology Trailblazer Award, Starfish by Hobsons. My name is Danifa Wellston. I serve as the Vice President for Strategy at Complete College America. And I want to just spend a couple of minutes sharing with you some of the exciting things that are happening with Complete College America, and then I'm going to get out the way and turn the floor over to our colleagues from Starfish by Hobsons. And so for those of you that are not familiar, we can move to the next slide. Complete College America is really an alliance, and it's an alliance of states and consortia and in some cases cities, where the leadership within those areas, in the case of the states, many times governors and state system higher education officers, are all committed to moving forward the concepts and the strategies behind college completion. For Complete College America, many of those strategies are what we refer to as our game changers. We can move to the next slide. And so, our mission is pretty simple. It's to leverage the breadth and depth of that alliance of many institutions and work to eliminate achievement gaps by providing opportunities within higher education for all students. We want all students to be able to complete degrees of credentials of purpose and value. So whether that be a 4-year institution or a 2-year associate degree institution, or even an institution that is offering some level of technical degrees, we want to make sure that every student has access to those opportunities. We can move on. And I mentioned the strategies that we've been known for have been our game changers. And you've seen a number of iterations of the language, but the strategies are pretty much the same. How do we ensure that more students get to on-time completion as quickly as possible in a structure that allows them to have the right path and with supportive guidance? So it includes strategies like 15 to finish, the momentum year, math pathways, co-requisite support, and recently we've been sharing more information about returning adults through our strategy called A Better Deal. We can move on to the next slide. And I think the main things that are important in this process is that we constantly are trying to figure out how to ensure that more students gain momentum towards completion. And so what we figured out is that students should hit some core metrics within their first year and their first couple of years. And the conversation that continued to arise is what technology solutions can help us put more students on this path to momentum, which is the reason why we created the Technology Seal of Approval process and the Technology Trailblazer Awards. And so at this time, what I'd like to do is turn the floor over to one of our consultants who worked and kind of led this effort, Jason Elwood, who can kind of give you a very quick overview of the Technology Seal of Approval and the Technology Trailblazer Award process. So it's on you, Jason.
Absolutely. Thank you, Donnie Fu. So we were excited in 2018 to add in 3 individual awards to the overall seal. And we broke them down into 3 categories of time, choice, and structure to represent 3 of the collaborative areas within technology that we were seeing a lot of efforts. The time award really focused on academic maps, guided pathway systems with the support of proactive advising. So we find that it's always important to make a plan, stay on the plan, and have that support from institutions for those students to be able to be successful. The Choice Award is another area where we wanted them to get off to a good start and make sure that they're making the right choices and that they're supported when they begin on a campus. So we get them into the right program, then make their plans around the Time Award. The Structure Award was really around the back end mechanics and support that needed to happen through analytics, making sure that we have faculty, course, section demand. And we found that all of those pieces are now necessary, and we've expanded each of those years. We're very pleased that Hobsons has been working with us collaboratively and won a couple of years now, and are really an example of how that partnership has worked and the alignment of what they're doing to what CCA is doing, and the successes that they'll talk about today has just been a real success and just a shining example. So with that, I will turn it over to Elise West to begin the Hobsons presentation.
Wonderful, thank you. So my name is Elise West, and I am a Starfish Product Manager at Hobsons. I will be assisting with questions today. Please enter your questions using the Zoom chat feature. And now let me introduce our speakers. Dipte Patel is Dean of Counseling and Student Success at El Camino College, a mid-sized community college of approximately 24,000 students located in Torrance, California. She currently is leading implementation of new technologies and updating practices to benefit student access and success, including the implementation of Starfish system tools. She has been at the college since 2001 as a counselor and director of the Special Resource Center for 9 years. She has a doctorate in education from USC, in addition to a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling and a bachelor's degree in interdisciplinary natural sciences, both from the University of South Florida. Emily Mittermeier is the California Community College's System Project Manager here at Starfish by Hobson. Emily has over 11 years of experience in the technology field and 7 years of experience at Hobson in implementation, consulting, and project manager roles. Emily has worked on the California Community College's Starfish implementation since 2015, first as a senior consultant and then as a project manager. Emily, take it away.
Thank you so much, Elise. This is Emily Mittermeier, as Elise said, and I'm going to kick us off today and start by covering the Starfish solution functionality kind of at a high level, as well as discuss some of the considerations and challenges with implementing and integrating the Starfish platform. And then I'm going to turn things over to Dipte Patel to discuss the remarkable El Camino College Starfish story. So for everyone in the room, I expect many of you are familiar with Starfish, and we'll certainly talk more about that in a moment. But just to give you a quick overview of Hobsons as a whole, we actually offer 3 solutions that help students identify their strengths, explore careers, create academic plans, match to their best fit educational opportunities, and foster student success. Our institutions use the Naviance platform to improve college and career planning. Intersect is used to improve admissions and enrollment management. And then finally, Starfish, which we will be discussing today, is used to improve student success and advising for millions of students around the globe. So I won't go through everything on this slide, but I think it is pretty apparent the impact that Starfish has on students in the market. As the only integrated comprehensive student success solution in the market, we are at almost 500 higher ed institutions, including some very large state systems, such as the California Community College system, which El Camino is a part of. We're also in the State University of New York system, the Penn State system, and others. Over 3 million students actively engage with Starfish each term. That is just incredible. Those students are all being supported by those of you who use the Starfish platform. So that's an amazing figure to know that Starfish is helping that many students actively each term. And over on the right, you can see the impact that Starfish has had at our institutions. Over 50% of our clients have increased their retention rates, and 33% have increased their graduation rates with the use of Starfish. And a bit later in the presentation, Dipte will be sharing some impressive outcomes from El Camino as well. So setting the standard for student success. As these stairs come up here, I think we can all agree that everything on the left is critical to student success at our institutions. And luckily with Starfish, all of those can be addressed. So for early identification of at-risk students, we have flags and alerts within Starfish. For the need for integrated and holistic advising practices, we have those tools available within the Starfish system to create that holistic experience, both for staff working with students to be able to see the whole student picture, as well as for students being able to access one system, Starfish, and be able to have resources available to meet their needs. And then we also have career and academic planning, which helps to provide clarity in academic planning for students. This includes creating customized electronic ed plans for students within the system that can be based on their preferences, their coursework, the careers that they're interested in. And I know Dipte will speak more to Degree Planner specifically in a bit. And then our intervention inventory and analytics can be used to gather data that's going to help support scaling student success resources at your institutions to make sure that all of your students' needs are met. And then finally, strategic consulting in change management is something that is so key to that final need, which is for cultural change and organizational behavior. Part of implementing a student success platform such as Starfish, it involves so much change on campus. And we all know that change isn't easy, and it's something that has to happen over time. And we do have strategic consultants that can assist with that need on your campus as well. Now, for anyone who has implemented technology or is currently implementing technology, I'm sure you can relate to needing technology that is flexible. You definitely are going to want a system for student success that is highly configurable to be able to suit the needs that you have on your individual campuses. You want a system that's going to allow for numerous workflows across your different campuses and offices and schools at your institution, because no department and school across campus does things quite the same. So you want to have the system be flexible enough to be able to accommodate everyone that's going to be using it. You also want the technology to be comprehensive, having a rich set of features that allows offices on campus to provide a consistent experience to students. You also want a solution that's integrated. You want to be able to integrate Starfish with your SIS and the data that's contained there, with your LMS if you have one, and be able to integrate course and grade information into Starfish. Your portal on campus is another point that you will want to integrate with Starfish. Information from tutoring services. Also, all things that you may want to have integrated within one single solution, such as Starfish, to be able to better serve your students. So as you can see, the Starfish Enterprise Success Platform checks all of those boxes. It's comprehensive, it's cross-functional. No matter what initiatives you have on campus, Starfish can support your efforts with those. We have early alert, case management. If you are a guided pathways school, we can support the case management that goes along with that, the degree plans that go along with that. Maybe you're not a guided pathways school. We can configure any piece of the system to support the workflows that you have on campus and support the work that you're doing with students. So we see that we've got the technology, we have the tool, Starfish, right? And Starfish is fantastic, but technology alone is not going to create student success on your campus. From an implementation perspective, the most important part of implementing Starfish is having the right group of people at the table to be able to make decisions about and discuss the best way to utilize Starfish on campus. You want to have a cross-functional project team that is engaged and focused on holistic student success and are able to do the following: create alignment around shared goals, develop the capacity for change, amplify the effectiveness of your interventions, work to streamline workflows and processes. That's a big one, and definitely something that there is a lot of discussion around during implementation. Using data and analytics that you have expertly to be able to guide decisions on how things are set up within Starfish. And finally, leveraging best practices and research from the community. With over or close to 500 Starfish colleges currently, there is a lot of expertise out there from other institutions, and it's so important to be able to reach out to others from other colleges within the Starfish community and learn about what they're doing on their campus, what's working for them, what's not, and just be able to engage with others who have the same student success goals as you. Now, with all of that being said, part of a successful rollout of Starfish includes all of the items below. So we mentioned as part of the implementation team, you want to have your group of stakeholders providing input on decisions being made during implementation, keeping the student in mind as workflows and processes are developed, and you want to keep that momentum going once you have completed your initial implementation of Starfish. And as you're rolling this out on campus, you want to make sure that goals that you've set from the beginning of the implementation, and as they relate to Starfish, these might be your institutional and strategic goals. You want to make sure to keep those front and center, be able to show how Starfish is going to support these goals, celebrate success when you achieve these goals using Starfish, and make sure that information is out there. Create a big tent atmosphere. I like this one because this is kind of like a Starfish party and everyone's invited. Make sure that your Starfish champions on campus, those folks who use Starfish from the start, and tell others of the great things that they're able to do with it and how it's supporting students. Make them feel like they're part of something new and special, because they are. They're involved in this big cultural change on campus to the benefit of your students and to staff that serve them as well. So definitely make sure that they feel recognized and appreciated for the hard work that they're doing. And also engage with the larger Starfish client community. And so we talked about engaging with the community during implementation. But post-implementation, be sure to talk with other Starfish schools. You can share your successes of how things have been going on your campus, or maybe you want to compare notes with another similar college nearby and see how they're doing things with Starfish. Continue to have that conversation with other Starfish colleges after implementation. And then communicate. I think this is hugely important. Communication is key, both during implementation and afterwards. And as it says here, and I think this is very good advice, up, down, and across the organization. Make sure everybody knows about Starfish, everybody knows what you've been doing, why it's important, what the goals are that you're setting out to accomplish, and make sure that you're communicating in a variety of channels. It doesn't just have to be emails being sent out. You could post flyers around campus, post things to social media, have events to either train on Starfish or promote Starfish, all kinds of things that you can do on campus to keep the conversation going about Starfish and the great things that it's doing to help your students. And keep repeating that message. Long after implementation has been completed, you want to persist and stay strong with the great work that you're doing with Starfish. Make sure to be able to measure your outcomes and report on those outcomes to stakeholders around campus, and know that all of the hard work that went into developing the Starfish platform to better support your students is having great outcomes. And so I'm particularly excited to be presenting with Dipte Patel from El Camino College today, because El Camino has a really fantastic implementation story, and I think it really emphasizes the deep understanding that they have of the positive impact that Starfish can have on their students. Now, I have been fortunate enough to be their project consultant for almost 4 years, and I can tell you that when they started out, they were just a college looking to implement a system for generating electronic ed plans, which is great. But as you'll hear from Dipte in just a moment, their Starfish journey actually turned into something much more than that, and really is nothing short of transformational. Before I turn things over to Dipte, Elise, were there any questions?
No questions yet, thanks.
All right. Dipte, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. As Emily mentioned, I'm Dipte Patel, and I'm from El Camino College. And all the great advice that she gave you, we really took to heart. So it's a pleasure for me to share with you today our El Camino story. As she mentioned, El Camino College did not have an electronic educational plan that our counselors were using. Our counselors had a number of issues with the advising tool that we did have within our SIS, and it wasn't meeting their needs. So essentially, most of our educational planning was paper and pencil or a fillable PDF, which, as you can already see, probably had many limitations and required a lot of scanning and manual inputting for tracking our educational planning contacts. So while we were in the process of viewing different options, a statewide pilot for educational planning and degree audit was starting here in California. So the college decided to apply and join the statewide pilot for the education planning initiative. We had 2 counselors at the time participating in the process, and they participated in the group RFP process where use cases and requirements for a tool were developed for statewide use. Hobsons Degree Planner at the time was selected, and the EPI team, as well as our college, was really thrilled about the product itself, as well as impressed with the Starfish Early Alert features that would allow us additional ways to connect and support students. It was quite timely that both of these came at the same time because our college was also looking to adopt an early alert system. In hindsight, some of the key steps early in our implementation was really understanding the landscape of this change, who it impacted, key contributors to decisions, and the desires of end users. Those things that Emily just mentioned. Our Starfish implementation consultants, they provided phenomenal structure and guidance that was very useful in directing this work, which is really organizational change. As Emily just shared, they'd requested the college complete some initial worksheets, examine our current systems and our business practices around educational planning, and form a core team. This team had broad representation from many areas of the college that would at different times have critical input to decisions, be impacted by the decisions, or assist with the campus buy-in or adoption. For example, our curriculum review process and catalog development timeline would need to incorporate the updates for this tool too. So key members of our college curriculum committee coordinated with the Starfish implementation team, so our courses and Starfish catalog, if you will, are also updated timely for educational planning. Therefore, early on, these respective teams, they met to discuss the process and align the timeline. Just understand these are iterative processes. It's not just one time. And so we continue to re-examine and revisit these. Initially, the project scope was just to implement an early alert system and degree planning tool, as Emily mentioned. Having foresight of how we would want to use the system, understanding the current tools and the common information used by counselors contributed to the early definitions that we used for student data that we want to bring into the system. These were the attributes that we built. It was a great opportunity for us to really look functionally across our system and consolidate and bring key student information into one place. This is displayed in the overview screen on the student record. Some of the data that displays there, counselors previously would otherwise have to locate from several different forms in our SIS, the transcript, financial aid, and even cohort data. So therefore, we were able to build some efficiency in accessing student key information for the counselors, as well as the opportunity for counselors to dive deeper when working with students. We also use these attributes to allow for filtering students for intervention strategies. So moving forward to post-implementation, we have different user groups who are actively engaged using the degree planner and early alert tools. Obviously, our academic counselors, I know across the country, this is often referred to as advisors in other sectors of higher education, but here in California, they're counselors. Obviously, they're the ones that are creating and approving educational plans. They also have the opportunity to do quick grad checks in the requirements tab. And they follow up on the referrals for counseling services and general concerns raised by instructors that are participating in Another way that we are using this is scaling to use in different group settings. So we have embedded counselors that go into the classroom, and counselors are participating in the onboarding events with the outreach department. So all new students have their first educational plan in this tool. As far as instructors, they're using the progress surveys twice a semester, and we also disseminated a midterm progress report for programs that had paper grade reports previously, and we just did that last semester. This is where instructors are able to commend students for their hard work with kudos for doing well or showing improvement. They can also share if they have concerns about attendance or other areas, or provide referrals to tutoring, the financial aid office, or counseling. With the midterm progress reports that we implemented, the students report the student's current grade. For instructors who are also using our learning management system, Canvas, which is the one that we use on our campus, we have linked with Starfish, so students and counselors are able to see grades in courses through the term. This has added some transparency regarding a student's performance during the term. Some instructors are very active in sending notes and messages to students throughout the term. So although this tool may not be said it's intended to be a communication tool, we have found that our users are certainly using it that way, and it's worked quite well in lieu of email. Another group that has engaged with the system are our student service providers. So we have several learning communities and special programs for different student cohorts or equity groups at the college. They are continuing to explore and scale uses as well. At the minimum, these programs, they're able to filter students for their cohorts, see which tracking items may be raised for students in their cohort from early alert, as well, and assign counselors for follow-up. They are also following up with students and creating to-do lists and success plans for students to guide them. Students, they're the center of this entire network. They access the system and raise their hand for support. We see this particularly true at the beginning of each semester with our students that are taking distance education courses. Currently, we also have the system open, so students can create their own educational plan and submit it to a counselor for review and approval. And we have a service catalog that lists various resources across campus, and they tend to see which resources they can use and those that they're already tethered to. This engagement has allowed our otherwise disparate programs and areas at the college to communicate and function collaboratively. It's really breaking down those silos. And it has been even noted in the feedback that we receive from students, in particular, how they have the sense someone cares about them. So these are a couple quotes from students regarding their experience with Degree Planner and the ability to track their progress. We added a Starfish link in Canvas, so students, they really don't recognize that these are all separate systems. They log into one or the other, or particularly Canvas, and the experience and access is seamless for them. And that's something that Emily had talked about in terms of integrating with other tools on campus. So with the closer connections among various stakeholders at the college, we have noted an increase in campus engagement. Of particular note, integrated efforts to support student success and retention, proactive advising, and increasing degree and certificate completion rates. Early alert flags and referrals have provided a springboard for integrated support across student service programs, academic support, learning communities, and instructors. This tool is actually provided as a communication vehicle amongst these areas. Usage for us is still scaling, but for last semester, fall 2018, which was our second semester of being launched, we had 323 users. That's staff and faculty users who raised over 5,000 tracking items. Those are the kudos, flags, or referrals to 3,179 unduplicated students. So although that is impressive, this is still in the developmental stage and scaling. But we're really proud of where we've come. So in regards to proactive advising, we recognize our services tended to be passive. And what I mean by that is we serve those students through scheduled appointments to meet with a counselor. Necessary was understanding that we need to change that paradigm and take services to students. Although it's in its infancy, we're continuing to look at what attributes or metrics better identify those students for intentional and proactive advising. So for example, our financial aid office and our financial aid counselor is looking at students before they're on staff or at risk of losing their financial aid due to high units. Our Student Success Program, which serves students on probation, is also filtering for these students to offer workshops, as well as identifying those that may be on the cusp of probation to provide guidance and intervention in advance to prevent reaching that probation status. We're also pulling data to identify students who meet specific criteria. For example, students that may have completed so many units to meet the graduation requirements. I think it's noteworthy to mention this type of data was not readily available to us before, so it's something new and fairly easy for us to access. We've also built in attributes to support filtering by equity metrics and for guided pathways. That includes things like major educational goals and even the last time a comprehensive educational plan was provided to a student. So with this information at hand, counselors are being more intentional and they're able to unpack information to provide holistic student support during their sessions. We have, as a result, identified more appointment types and adjusted our appointment lengths accordingly. So no longer are all appointments that standard or base 30 minutes. We're able to give that additional time and support to students for those that need it, depending on what they're coming in for. Last, with the implementation of Degree Planner, we're able to have transparency across programs and counselors. As you can imagine, with paper ed plans, a student could have had multiple ed plans from different counselors, which can be confusing for them. So students also benefit as they access this information anytime, particularly when they register for the following term. Anecdotally, we already noticed this with students that were registering for winter and spring. They're adhering to the course recommendations in the term suggested, which was not necessarily the case prior. So this helps students stay on that path and complete timely. In the last year, we've had over 4,400 educational plans created, yet that usage is also increasing rapidly. I just pulled it up last night. I noticed 600 educational plans were created in Degree Planner and approved just in the last 2 weeks. And at the college, we have a goal that 90% of all of our educational plans are drafted in Degree Planner by May 2019. So we're scaling pretty quickly. Another area where we're seeing good campus engagement is an intake form. We're structuring the tool for implementing proactive advising by using this tool that was in there. I have to give credit to Northeast Wisconsin Technical College because they're the ones who initially had shared this intake form, and it's really helped our development process. We created this form with various questions about the students' about the student's certainty with their major and their career choice, list of programs or services that they may want information on, what their current commitments may be, such as working, caring for children or family members, and based it on recent data from our climate survey, we even added questions about housing and food insecurity. This way, we're able to provide students with potential campus or community resources early, as well as have dialogue about factors that may influence the student's success and retention. We even have a question in there about how much free time they have or how much more time they may be able to study, really to support things like 15 to finish. All new students who are starting in fall 19 are currently completing the survey as part of their onboarding events that we have, whether they're coming with a high school or attending one of our El Camino College days. It was a very easy switch. It's not really adding any further burden or barriers for students in that since we've stopped using standardized assessment tests due to Assembly Bill 705 in California, this was an easy switch for them to do it, and it's really quick and convenient. Another area that we moved forward with is using a report that is still in beta testing with Starfish by Hobsons, the close to completion. This tool allowed us to explore students who may be close to completing, those that have 10 or fewer units remaining to earn a degree or certificate. In collaboration with our institutional research department, we used this list to then further explore who these students were and what their potential awards may be. So the first time we received the list, we noticed we had a number of students who had no units that were needed to to graduate. So we sent that correspondence in the summer to 280 plus students to say, go ahead and file for your intent for graduation. And prior to the fall semester last year, we looked at students who may just have a few units left, and we invited them in advance of the semester starting to come and do a quick grad check. We wanted to make sure that they were enrolled in the correct classes and can complete that semester. During that semester, we also reached out through our cohort programs to review the eligibility for any degree or award. And although I think we contacted more, we have documentation that with 530 students followed up. And so for this semester, the spring of 2019, we're scaling, and our goal is to go ahead and evaluate 1,400 students off this latest list to see those that may be close to completion. What was made quite apparent by going through this process is that many of our students are moving on. They're transferring to four-year institutions, but weren't taking the time and effort to file for an intent for graduation. So that also allowed us to be a little bit inward focused and started to look at our filing timelines, the support that we're providing, even the promotion that we're doing on campus, encouraging students to file an intent for graduation. We're also examining where our degree requirements may be out of alignment, so students can transfer as juniors to a four-year university, but our policy interpretations or our area requirements are too restrictive. So working with this report has contributed to our efforts with examining our data and processes to ensure we remove barriers from student achievement and experience. So this has been a cyclical learning process for our college. So it's been a good experience in being able to continue to look in a couple ways. And I'll just make note that that picture at the bottom are actual El Camino College graduates from last spring. Mm-hmm. So hindsight is 2020. So reflecting on the implementation process, here's some advice and what we learned along the way. In setting up our catalog and degree planner, we had to obviously test all of our certificates, Associates of Arts, Associates of Science degrees, and even our associate degrees for transfer. So what we did during these testing phases is we brought in several counselors into those different phases of the testing process. This allowed them to play and learn while also testing. It also brought a broader perspective how different individuals may use the system, their preferences and ideas. So it allowed us to see how we may build things differently too. We did provide counselors some time to become comfortable with using Degree Planner during student appointments before making the system live to students. But as I mentioned, hindsight's 2020, and what I might recommend is be assertive with that timeline. Don't wait for perfection, because we do know using some tool during the appointment process and balancing the humanistic part with the technology takes some time. But know which cases work in the system and forge forward. Don't keep putting it off is my recommendation. Further, we recognize that those users end up becoming the experts. So having forums for ongoing sharing of tips and tricks is quite useful. As mentioned previously, people process and organize information differently. So having those opportunities to share brings greater knowledge, but also excitement and engagement with using these tools. A second item is to make sure there is strong technical resource and support for the implementation phase, but as well as ongoing. So early on, we recognized that, and we hired a permanent position, a Starfish system administrator that has been invaluable. We also identified who are those dedicated super users so they can be part of this team that continue to test and provide feedback. This tool is not static. The college can continue to adapt to the initiatives and the changes that are happening at the college. And so you want to make sure that you have that team of super users that you can keep going back to. Even each year, as you input the next catalog, college catalog, testing those updates just to make sure the programs are operating properly. Last, you want to identify who does what. So if there's any distinction of who has access to the back end of the system versus the front end of the system tools, have this clarification of timeline and responsibility, or even accountability with your ITS staff or whichever department it may be. It makes it a lot easier making sure that the system is actively being, system issues are actively being addressed. Last, transitioning from a larger implementation team to our core team. Early on, Hobsons really helped us in identifying who that cross-functional team is. But once we had gotten past that initial implementation, we wanted to form this core team. And this core team continues to meet on a regular basis, as well as those that were other key groups on campus that you need to integrate and coordinate with. So we're finding that maintaining that core team is essential for things like timelining, reviewing the progress, even the semesterly feedback surveys that we do, promotion and ongoing promotion of the Starfish tools and development, as well as program enhancements and training. So, you know, we started initially thinking we were just implementing, you know, technology to facilitate educational planning and an early alert system. So this is the same stair-step tool that you saw earlier with the Starfish tools. And so looking at how it is at our college, what you could see is that the college process, you know, we started off with just implementing early alert and degree planner. And then we found that there's other ways to continue to evolve that. So what began as transactional change has evolved into a whole system support. So after the initial implementation of degree planner and early alert, we acted on the close to completion list to identify students who met or were close to meeting a credential. So as a holistic student success solution, we're looking at factors to get ahead of withdrawals. And that's based on a withdrawal study that we just did at our college last semester. The possibility and capacity of using the midterm progress report to replace forecasting, and how we can even source the data in our educational plans to inform strategic enrollment management and offer classes for when students need them. Further, the intake form that I had mentioned earlier, it's creating some purposeful connections with students earlier in their student experience, including their major and career guidance, which we know is very important for them staying on the path. With the student equity and achievement goal of all students having an educational plan, we're also developing content to scale these efforts. We've created a video for students on how they can create their own ed plan, but we also are looking to develop structured guidance and workshops to present it in groups. And that might even be by educational goal or meta major. So as the college continues to implement different technologies and applications, we're also looking to see where we can integrate with these tools and how they may benefit students. So integrating data from our lab or tutoring visits, like Emily had mentioned, even our course scheduling for the strategic enrollment management, and we're implementing a new document management system. So we're even looking to see how we can store our educational plans there. These are the baby steps towards improved tracking of intervention and analytics. Some colleges, they've already established their guided pathways, schools or meta majors or program maps, whatever they're calling it. But at El Camino College, we're still refining these. So once these are agreed upon, we'll have to adjust our program to mirror these and incorporate the transfer pathways. And so you can see, even from as we've continued to evolve in here, students have as well. And earlier you saw that this was truly organizational cultural change, and that's what we're seeing as well here. So those incremental developments, they've really impacted our business process, our practice, and truly allowed for integrated student support. Although we think of it as just small evolving, it has really resulted in revolutionary change at the college to support the student along the pathway from onboarding to completion. So I will say it has fostered a greater collaborative effort as well among all entities in both instruction and student services. And it allows us as a college to place the focus where it should be, which is on the student. Are there any questions?
We do have some questions. So the first question is, can you discuss who is on your core team?
Okay, so on our initial team, it was really broad, as Emily had mentioned, but on our core team now, we have a researcher, we have that system administrator, we have a counselor, we have Dr. Linda Clowers and I who are leading the efforts for educational planning as well as early alert. And then we have a student services advisor. And so that advisor is the one that's doing a lot of our back end in terms of when we have tracking items come in, what is that workflow? And so she's the lead for all of the other areas. And then we have a representative from our IT department. And then as needed, we call in folks, whether it be someone from our marketing and communications department, or, for example, I had mentioned our campus did a withdraw survey. So we brought in that researcher to talk about that withdraw survey just in our morning meeting today to see how can we change things. But that core team, they continue to meet, and it's been a good effort.
Wonderful, thank you. So the next question comes from NWTC. They thank you for the shout out. So does your college have a degree audit in your student information system that you use to graduate students? Is the first piece, so let's start with that.
No, it doesn't. It's not fully developed. So that's where one of our system limitations exist. And so our quick check is here in our Starfish system. Unfortunately, it's a very manual process for our evaluators. And so that's an area of the college that we're continuing to develop, not only the degree audit, but bringing in the data from the outside transcripts.
Okay, so it sounds like you all don't have a degree audit system. So the second part, I think, is not relevant, but the second part, for those who are curious, is do staff have to maintain the degree requirements in both the SIS degree audit and the Starfish Degree Planner? So I guess I'll ask you, are you maintaining degree requirements in two places?
It may be eventually that way, but our SIS is not fully developed. So right now we have it in the Starfish system. We did give access to our evaluators, and so they're even checking. So for example, we talked about the close to completion. So rather than doing it in our SIS, they're going to actually do it through here. But they do have to go back to our SIS for the transcript notation and the awarding. But the checks can happen in our Starfish tool. Does that make sense?
I think it did. And we'll see. We'll respond and say differently. Thank you. So the next question is, do you have degree planner training for your students?
So we have the video that we've created. And so rather than a training that may happen in the future, we want to deploy this in a group effort. So whether it be our embedded counselors in the classroom, our workshops, our meta major groups, that's where we're looking to do it. And we're looking at doing a cross section of some of those equity measures of students, and those that we can do fairly quickly. And so what we have found is just because we made it live, some students are already going out there and just creating them. So they really haven't struggled creating an ed plan on their own. But the video is quite descriptive on what you pick and how you pick.
Wonderful, thank you. And so the second part of that is, are students using Degree Planner? And I think you explained that they are. And so that is very helpful. And I encourage people, you'll get the recording so you can hear that part again. There were some great quotes as well. Another question we have is, what would you say has been the most successful feature of the program so far, and why?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because I think every time we implement something, we're like, oh, and it can do this too. From a student perspective, we have heard from them so many times that they felt like someone cared about them. And just by someone reaching out or giving that kudos or checking in on them. And so impactful for students has been being able to connect to a larger community when they were disconnected at the college. The second feature, I think, that I really, not that you asked for two, that I like from more of our perspective in terms of a college user is the opportunity that we've been able to consolidate a lot of features in one place. When I looked at how many different screens counselors were going to gather information, and if you just happen to not, let's say, go to the screen that shows restrictions, you may not have even known that a student had a hold, or you may not have even known that a student was part of a cohort and you could ask it if you didn't go to another screen. So being able to pull that into one place is really allowing us to see students more wholly. And I think that is going to start changing how we support students even more. And so that is a feature of the tool that I think is very useful and helpful. And we keep developing and keep adding attributes. And, you know, even just this semester, our athletic department said, oh, we want to be on it. And we were able to build all of our teams in it. So now coaches can even dig deeper with students. So the way that we can connect the information from our SIS to really start seeing who they are at an individual level versus previously we may have just seen research reports with numbers, that I think has been really wonderful.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm checking to see if there are any additional questions. So there was a question about what types of systems we integrate with from student information system perspective. So we can integrate with basically any system that a client can extract data from. So we should be able to handle pretty much any student information system. Next question for you, Dipte. What would you say has been the most challenging piece of the implementation process?
The limitations of our system. We have a very highly customized SIS. And while we were implementing it, we actually changed from Unidata to SQL. And so just really recognizing the limitations of our SIS has been the most challenging. So I think that's something we at the college own. It wasn't really the limitations on the Starfish tool end.
Okay. Okay, last call for questions. Okay, another question for you, Dipte. Do you have dedicated IT people for implementing on your campus?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Do you have dedicated information technology people for implementing on your campus?
So we have the one dedicated new hire that we have is the system administrator. And then within our IT department, there's two individuals that they had identified for things that our system administrator would not have access to. But it really, how can I put this? It's not really a big time suck for them. We haven't really had to rely on them too heavily because once the system is ongoing, it's just some of the standard things that we change over with the calendar. So it hasn't required too much dedicated time on their part.
And then another question is, how long did it take you to fully implement?
I think that depends on how we look at the time frame. We've been part of this for 4 years, but earlier I mentioned how we went from Unidata to SQL in the middle of the implementation. So all the work we had done from the extract from our SIS, we had to rebuild. From the pilot 2 schools, Emily might be able to speak to that a little bit better because I think it would be faster than our implementation. We had a number of other changes at the college at the same time. But for Degree Planner, I'd probably say it took us maybe 2 years, but we spaced things out quite a bit, and I don't think that's necessary for other schools to do so. Early Alert can be implemented very quickly.
Emily, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. So since El Camino was part of the pilot project for the Education Planning Initiative for the California community colleges, they and the other colleges in that group were in kind of a unique spot because they were coming in to Starfish and implementing Degree Planner as we were combining, Hobsons was combining Starfish with our Degree Planner system. So it was kind of an odd spot for all of us with those transitions. So the pilot colleges did take a little bit longer to implement Degree Planner, but in colleges since, we typically see, probably for college around El Camino's size, probably about a year.
Great, thank you. So there's another question, is it possible to take only portions of the Starfish product? For example, could we purchase only the educational planning and leave the retention early alert mechanism? So usually the retention early alert is our base. We do have various different offerings, so you don't have to purchase all of it. And that's something that, again, we could have somebody follow up with you on to understand what you're interested in. So another question, Dipte, for you is, what student information system are you all using?
We have a Lucian colleague, but as I mentioned before, a highly customized version of it.
Great. And is the dedicated system administrator a functional role, like or is it a technical role?
More of a functional role.
Okay, great. Okay, let me just, all of the questions came in very rapidly, so hold on one second as I scan through these. Okay, so another question is, can you talk about how Degree Planner works with how the course offerings are populated? So one question is, does the counselor or the student have to populate the planner?
Sure, I think Emily and I can probably both. Do you want to go first? Yeah. So when a user enters the system, the way that we've built it is a student can select a program. So that might be a major that we have here, as well as a general education pattern. They also have a series of questions that they can answer in terms of like how many units they want to take a semester, 9 or 15, as well as what term they want to start it. Once they do that and build plan, it automatically populates the plan for the number of years it takes. It takes into consideration courses that they've already completed because we're pulling that information in from our SIS. From there, you can move around which semester students can take it. You can start it from scratch. If you just say 0 units, it won't populate any term by term, but you'll see all the courses in the requirements tab and you can determine when you want to do it. And that's the one thing that we've liked about the system. We know that counselors think differently. They organize differently in their mind as well. And that flexibility on how they create a plan has worked well for them. But it can be fully populated. In terms of which semester the classes go, we have that connection. It's the TBA offerings of when we typically offer our classes. It has those predictive offerings, plus we can say, for example, new courses that we're just going to be offering for the first time in the fall. We're able to put it in there that, yes, it's going to be offered so students can build it in that semester. As we make our section data live, students can actually select the specific section that they're going to register for in that term as well, and see a visual schedule of how it lays out in terms of the week or the days of when those classes are offered.
Wonderful, thank you. We are at time, so thank you everybody for all of those excellent questions. CCA, is there anything you'd like to say?
No, I think we're good. We're happy to hear very good information that you guys provided. And as you guys said, the video will be provided, the link for the video will be provided to all attendees fairly shortly this week.
Wonderful, thank you. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.